I'm Josh Keegan, and welcome to the Space Down Under Live. In this episode of the Space Down Under Live, I will be speaking with Dr. Jason Held. Dr. Held is the CEO of the Saber Astronautics, and in November 2021, Saber Astronautics actually signed a deal with Axiom Space in order to allow Australian astronauts to access the International Space Station. Yeah, that's right. Aussienauts! Yes! Can't wait. Remember, there is a chat screen here, so it's open now where you can actually ask your questions during the live stream. I'll be keeping an eye on that. Just keep in mind I'll be asking all of your questions at the end. So as always, now's the time to grab a cup of coffee or at least your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's get started. I'm going to go into a bit of an introduction about Jason to begin with. So Jason has actually obtained his PhD from the Australian Centre of Field Robotics, where he has developed new methods for measuring the performance of complex systems using machine learning. And he also founded the University of Sydney's Space Engineering Laboratory. Jason is a space engineer with 20 years experience in spacecraft, operations, mission control, and team leadership. Space is a personal passion of his, mine too, and which has ultimately led him to found Saber Astronautics as the mechanism to contribute to the industry that he loves. Saber Astronautics was founded in 2007 and was incorporated in 2008. Just as a quick little side note, Jason has actually spent the last 10 years developing Saber's predictive ground station project, affectionately called Piggy. Piggy is the next generation of space mission control software developed by an experienced team of space operations systems control experts, user experience or UX, and robotics experts. Piggy brings together the latest techniques in human factors, artificial intelligence, and dynamic 3D data visualization to make it easy for spacecraft operators to monitor, fly, and rapidly diagnose faults in spacecraft systems. Jason, welcome to the Space Down Under Live, and thanks very much for joining me.
Yeah, my pleasure. How are you going?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. You've appropriately dressed. You in your robe.
Maximize comfort for this call.
That's awesome.
I was really enjoying what you have on the wall behind you, by the way, the teddy bear in the back. I want to know what that's about.
Oh, this guy?
Yeah.
So this guy is actually modeled after myself, believe it or not. So my sister-in-law a long time ago, when there was FAO Schwartz in the United States, and this is actually me as a Muppet. So there you go. So my kids loved him, and he's been known as Daddy Monster for years. But my wife has actually recently asked that I do something with him for what she's doing, so that way she's going to create some videos herself. So yeah, she's a high school teacher. So we're going to get into that. She's going to help me. I'm going to be helping her out with that really, really soon. So, all right. So thanks very much again very much for joining me. And thanks very much for taking the time to chat about what this deal between Saber Astronautics and Axiom Space actually means for the Australian space industry. As I mentioned in the introduction, Saber Astronautics, which you're the head of, and Axiom Space have signed a deal to provide Australia with access to the International Space Station and the new commercial space station now under construction with Axiom Space. That's the components being built on the ground. My first question to you, mate, would be why? Why have you decided to, as CEO of Saber Astronautics, why have you decided to go along and actually sign a deal with Axiom Space to get Aussies to the International Space Station? What's the reason?
So why Aussies?
Yeah, why Delilah?
Why astronauts? So, well, the why astronauts is an easy one to answer. I mean, this is kind of why we're all in this game, right? We want human space flight. We want to push the economy of human space flight from LEO to GEO and beyond. And we're seeing in our customer list, we're seeing people sending satellites to cislunar and to the lunar region. But astronauts is really why I got into this game. You know, this is why we all got interested in space, not because we want to build a satellite that takes a picture of the Earth. That's all quite useful. But why a lot of us get in, at least for myself, it's because I want to see people walking on Mars. I want to see people walking on the moon, and I want to see people. The emphasis on people doing things. That's really where the rubber meets. And frankly, the company's name is Saber Astronautics, not Saber Software Astronautics, or So we always kind of had it in our minds at Saber that, we're an operations company, of course, but we always had it in our mind that we're going to be controlling operations of people and machines working on different planets, and that's the vision that we want to see in the future. So when Axiom put this, when they announced what they were doing and put together their program, of course, we're jumping on board and working with them.
Okay, so my other question would be was how did this deal come about? What I mean, I understand the motivation behind it, but did you go about brokering such a deal?
Oh, mate, total serendipity. I've known a couple of people on the Axiom team for a while, but we didn't have any serious business going. It's more just having a beer every now and then when I show up in California on the way to Colorado, because we have our other operations center in Colorado. And the deal actually came about through an Australian friend. Look, Saber, we've been around for a while. So every once in a while, I get a call from someone who says, "I want to join the space industry. How do I do it?" And we try and help out everyone we can. And we had this, we can't hire everyone. And we had a call from a guy who had literally zero space experience. He was a salesperson. He was, "I want to help out, and how do I do that?" And this was a couple of years ago, and at the time I was like, we can't really hire you now.
Yep.
And for a space company, hiring someone without space experience is really tough. I got to train them up over a year. We ended up doing that eventually. But this person, I said, "Listen, why don't you go?" Just gave him some advice and told him where he could get his training. He ended up going to ISU out in Strasbourg, and got hired by Axiom out of that, and he was very grateful. And he sent me a bottle of wine, which is, of course, for me, more than what I would have asked for.
Yeah.
He said, "Let's actually work together. This is the kind of helping people out, joining forces sort of thing, and we're all in this little world together." So he said, "What can we actually do together?" And so this is what we came up with.
Oh wow, that's awesome. So serendipity intervenes yet again. So what does this mean for the average Aussie, and what does it mean for the Australian space industry? What is this going to do for Australia as a country?
Oh, I don't know yet. I mean, that's the exploratory part. It's a framework that we can make out of if we want to make something out of it together. Right? That's the short answer I'll give. Because at the end of the day, this isn't something that Saber could do alone. This is something that we kind of have to join forces on. But what we're aiming to do in the first instance is find industry in participants. We're looking for projects and products that can be manufactured on orbit that can spin out new business in Australia. That new business and the new products are what's going to fund the cost for an astronaut to go up, and a continuing program is what I'm looking for out of this. So rather than spending money on one wealthy individual who spends a lot of money for that individual to go forward, what we want is new businesses that are building manufacturing and products out of the Australian ecosystem, manufacturing on orbit, leveraging the advantage that you can get from the microgravity environment. And I'm really looking to see from the Australian population what new products they could come up with. Our role is going to be to help them kind of navigate, because you got a lot of very smart people in Australia that have never done space before, don't really understand how to, on one side, you don't know how the challenges of working in space, but on the other side, you don't know what it could do for you if you make a product in space, right? So our job's going to help navigate that. And what we want to see from the Australian population is aggressive building of new products. And what you could get out of that at the end of the day is if we could solve that, then we're planning on having an open call for astronauts from the general public. So we could find an astronaut. So what you get out of it is an Australian citizen that could be an astronaut without being without having to get dual citizenship. Not that that's such a horrible
I
thing.
volunteer as tribute.
Sure. Hold on.
Sorry.
But I mean, that's really the thing. An Australian astronaut building Australian products
Yeah.
without having to be beholden to another nation. I think that for any country, that's kind of like the holy trinity of a space program, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's like the
absolutely.
holy grail. That's what you really want to do. That's sovereignty right there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to break it down for me, and for the audience as well. So what would be the advantages of using microgravity to actually for on-orbit manufacturing? What would be those obvious benefits that you were talking about?
Um, well, some of the benefits aren't obvious. Some of them are still under research and being explored. But what the scientific community has found out so far, you get rid of gravity, and the forces you have left are really things like surface tension, right?
Mm,
So crystallization, you have serious advantage in manufacturing processes that require crystallization.
mm,
Drug manufacturing, pharmaceutical companies are spending a lot of money on space already, and doing a lot of experiments on orbit. Silicon chip manufacturer has yielded results for 1,000-time improvement in speed, 1,000x
wow.
improvement in chip speed. Um, some products like uh, quantum computing is very exploratory, but early results are showing some interesting advantages and challenges both. Uh, 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 Biomedical 3D printing on orbit. Obviously, you get rid of gravity, you could 3D print structures and 3D print organs. It sounds a bit macabre when you say it
Yep.
that way, but it from a medical standpoint, so there's a lot of product manufacturing opportunities there. What's another one? Fiber optics. You know,
Yeah.
100-time improvement in fiber optics. Challenge, of course, is logistic. How do you get economy of scale with any of these products?
Yep. All right. Cool. Yeah, and then that is the obvious challenge of it all. So I've just got a question as well. What are your thoughts about our sovereign launch capability? So we've got a number of companies that are actually stretching towards going to low Earth orbit, and out of all of them, the one that seems to be leading the charge is Gilmore Space Technologies. So what are your thoughts about Australia's sovereign launch capability, or do you think this will be done solely through the big ones, the main players like SpaceX and ULA and Delta and all those sorts of things? So what do you think about Australia's launch capability, or do you think it'll just be something that we'll need to do that will be done through the big main players?
I don't know. They're certainly well funded. You got Gilmore, you got Black Sky. Those are the only, I think, credible
Yep.
launch manufacturers. The word credible I put in quotes from a technical standpoint, not necessarily from a funding standpoint.
Yep.
Uh, there, I mean, obviously Gilmore's killing it from a funding standpoint. Technically, when I look at their product, I haven't done a deep dive on any of them, by the way.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. But you're seeing very beautiful tests from Gilmore test stands at the moment. But there's a big hurdle they have to get through when you're seeing test stands and you're not seeing vertical tests,
Yep.
and I'm not talking suborbital, right, but vertical tests, then there's a long ways to go. So you see a lot of promise is kind of what I'm saying, but you're
Yeah.
also seeing a lot of distance to travel. Black Sky, I think, is interesting only because they're not telling anybody what they're doing, so we're all curious. They're doing suborbital attempts, or no, not sounding rockets, not
Sounding
suborbital,
rockets. Yep.
sounding rockets. The evidence shows that they're a grade above the hobby grade level. I have met some of the engineers on the teams for both companies. You got some smart people. Let's keep in mind that Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, started with 10 million investment,
Yeah.
right? So to say, is it only going to be ULA? Well, you used to say it was only ULA, and now you got SpaceX, Rocket Labs, and all these. So of course, it's possible for us to do it. Their challenges are going to be economic in nature, and can they move fast enough in order to kind of hit that curve that kind of like economic curve, and we got about 5 years left of that, I think.
Yep. So Saber Astronautics, your main mission is to democratize space, reducing barriers to spaceflight, making it as easy as driving a car. That's what's publicly listed on your website.
Yeah.
So Saber is now for research and development laboratories and mission control centers, both in the US and Australia. So what is your involvement between the US and Australia? Is it just the research and development laboratories, or is your background is you're US military trained? You were born in the United States, is that right?
Yeah, I was born in the U.S.
Yep.
I was in the military for 5 years before I entered the space industry, stationed mostly in Europe and Asia.
Yep.
And on the U.S. side, as a civilian, I was working on Hubble Space Telescope. I was a flight software engineer for one of the cameras on Hubble.
Yep.
And I was a test engineer for the International Space Station, some of the modules that they were building for that.
Yeah.
And I was with Space Command in part of the Colorado Guard. So I was spending time on active duty and spending time in civilian land and going back and forth.
Yep.
And for the Colorado, for the space industry in the military side, I was on an Army space support team, and I was part of the Space and Missile Defense Command Battle Lab, and I was a senior instructor for Army Space Command.
Yep.
So after that happened, they said, "Hey," I was applying to be an astronaut, and the Army said, "Okay, we'll send your application as part of the Army's group." So made the first hurdle,
Yep.
and they said, "Well, you kind of need an advanced degree," and that's when I started looking around for graduate programs, and that's kind of how I ended up here in Australia.
Oh, right. Because I was just going to say, why Australia? I mean, considering that, as we already know, that our history is like we've had a very tumultuous history. We almost had a space agency or office of space, a space office, and all that sort of stuff. And with our whole history has been mired in political rhetoric and budgetary underfunding and all that sort of stuff. So, why was it mainly for the PhD that you came here, or was it why Australia, and why set up a Australian US company or US Australian company?
That's a hell of a story. Yeah, I came here not even for a PhD. I came here for a master's.
Oh, masters. All right, I missed that bit.
Yeah, I was going to be here for 2 years. Well, I was here so the ACFR, the University of Sydney's robotics group at the time was top 3 in the world for robotics. And my options were University of Southern California, which is a good school for rockets, and the ACFR for robotics. And there was 2 things that went to the decision. I got the price for American University, which was like $20,000 a semester.
Yeah.
And then I got the price for the University of Sydney. And also, who wants to live in LA? It's a hole. I hate LA. It's a huge, dirty city. It's personal choice, right? And I'd never been to Australia, saw too many Crocodile Dundee movies as a kid. I was kind of like curious about it. It was part of the world I've never been in. So, it's time to travel again, see another part of the world. In 6 months, I had a great time. All these friends. I showed up in the country for 5 minutes, and one of the members of one of my co-researchers was just like, "Jason, you're coming with me, mate." He was like partying every weekend and meeting all these people, and real mateships, like real friendships. And my master's supervisor came up to me. He says, "Jason, you're worthless to me as a master's. Upgrade to a PhD, and I'll pay for it." So I swapped out to a PhD. And met the woman that I was eventually going to marry, and graduated in about 4 years, and about when you're supposed to, and living in Manly, on the beach, and living the dream, right? And I was like, well, I'm graduating. I got to go back to the States to start this company, because I always wanted to start a space company.
Yep.
Had no idea what the fuck I was going to do, right? It wasn't like, hey, let's do the tech and then build a company around the tech. I just knew I wanted to be a part of the tech growth that pushes people to Mars. That was my goal, right? And that was it, right? And take everything I'd learned from these places and build something out of it, right? And she convinced me to stay. I founded Saber Astronautics in the United States and in Australia. And in the United States, it was with other pals that I had in the U.S. And the Australian was with pals I had in the U.S. and separate companies. The U.S. one failed very quickly. And the reason why was because of the global financial crisis in 2008. You think of the time, we had a really good contract that we were going to make the first space-rated microchip for Sun Microsystems.
Oh, wow.
Sun got bought out by Oracle, who had zero interest in space. Contract goes away. Saber USA became an empty shell with no money, and we just kind of like a club hanging out. And so Saber Australia, I was like, what am I going to do? And you're right. Why Australia at the time? 2007, 2008, it was like the dark ages for space in Australia. We spent $4 billion a year on space, but that all went to the United States, right? So I did a project. I did fun projects that I thought I could gather some revenue and some strength out here and build something from nothing. By the way, I love a challenge.
I've got that.
The first product that I made in Australia was a beer you can drink in space, partnered with the Four Pines Brewery out of Manly.
How Aussie is that?
Right? So, I was like, if there's any product I start, it's going to be this. I pissed off every space person with this product, and I became a hero to every undergraduate student.
You would.
And the general public loved it, right? So we were the #1 science tech story for 3 days in a row back in like 2010 when we announced this product. And I was getting visits from the top astronomers in the country to buy my beer and bitch me out. How horrible I was for making this product, because it was taking glory away from them. And they said, if you're successful, nobody's going to take us seriously because of this stupid fucking beer. Excuse my French. But that's the story. It's how we found out. And just the beer and the popularity with the university crowd from the student level, maybe not anybody else, meant that we had the pick of the litter of talent. And by then I was building, I found a niche for Saber by then was diagnostics for satellites. So I was using the machine learning skills and the education I had at the University of Sydney, and I turned it into a product that could predict when a satellite is under threat, from space weather, debris, or different things. I was starting to make a little bit of money with that. So that's kind of the story. Eventually, Saber USA recovered, and the success in one country is leverageable in the other country, and flying back and forth, and they both kind of grow like that, and that's how it goes.
So, Michael, my question is now is we're going to deviate a little bit to the left a little bit. What's the space cockpit? I found a video on space cockpit on your YouTube channel, because that's one of the things I do. I search everything, and I found a space cockpit. What I'll do is I'll show the video first for everyone to have a look at, and then you can explain it a little bit more depth and detail of exactly what this is. Just give me a minute.
Sure.
Satellite technology has made enormous strides in recent years, but the tools used to deploy, manage, and protect these assets have not kept pace with the growing needs of the modern space operator. At Saber Astronautics, we believe that the tools used to field these capabilities are just as important as the satellites themselves, so we developed Space Cockpit. We created a highly intuitive space domain awareness program. We developed our application with a user-centered design approach that incorporates direct feedback from operators. Similar tools can require up to 45 days of training to attain proficiency. Space Cockpit was designed using a gamified approach. This allowed us to cut training time down to just 45 minutes. Space Cockpit isn't just a software solution. It provides the tools and support that operators need to explore and master the space that they work in. We have huge plans for the future, but we need your support. Help us to create a space cockpit that fits the needs of your mission. Fund Space Cockpit and define the future of space domain awareness technology. I'm Nathan Parrott, the Director of Saber Astronautics, and I'm looking forward to sharing Space Cockpit with you and your team.
So, all right. So, what is that exactly? Because looking around, found it.
It's mission control software for the military, right? So that's the simplest answer. So, you mentioned our civilian product, Piggy, the Predictive Ground Station Interface. So that's, when we had founded Saber, one of the problems that I had identified in the industry. You still there?
Yeah, it's still there. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. That happens with live. I occasionally press the wrong button.
But that was so Piggy is mission control software. It's if you go down to Lot 14 in Adelaide, you can see it in action. We initially designed it to sell to other companies rather than using it ourselves. But you could control spacecraft and do mission planning, and we want this kind of like every product in one. Integrated space weather, because normally in space operations you got very text-based displays. It's like the Matrix. You're looking for one of these old words to turn red, and you have to have really highly trained people. We wanted to make it very easy to use and really bring it down to the general public, so anybody who plays a video game could sit down on this product and use it. Out of our U.S. lab, the military found out, because Colorado Springs isn't too far from our headquarters, our U.S. headquarters in Boulder, Colorado. And I think it was back in 2017, the U.S. Air Force, not Space Force yet at that point, started a rapid acquisition program because they got really tired of the old school way of doing space operations. And they got a big problem where their operators are like 22 to 26 years old.
Yeah.
Well, in the commercial sector, the commercial operators are usually like 45, 50, like, my age, right? They've been in the industry 20 years. But a military operator doesn't have the luxury of going through a year-long training program to learn how to use piece of software, right? So they saw ours and they called me up, can you do a military version of Piggy? You can't call it, I named the product Piggy because I got tired of Greek god names and space operations software. Right, it's space products like Thor, kind of,
I know they get a bit over the top with those sorts of
So we made up the name Space Cockpit
as
a military implementation of what most people know as Piggy. And they use it. It's got a certificate to field. It's being used at what they call the high side, which means national security, missions, yada yada.
So what? I'm just curious as well as to what's being used in the Responsive Space Operations Center. Is that a combination of both of those softwares, or is it mainly the Space Cockpit that's used in there? Because you've also done that as well. You've established one in Adelaide and Colorado. I mean, just to do other things as well, because you haven't done enough.
Well, all right. So Space Cockpit is only for the U.S. military.
Yep.
And it's built for the specifications of the missions they have.
Okay.
Which kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way because Piggy is designed for any mission. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so Boulder has got the Mission Control Center, which is about half the size of the one in Adelaide, by the way. The Adelaide one is bigger. And a bit better funded thanks to the space agency. And they operate as kind of a follow the sun operation. So that means we need a third one. If you want 8-hour shifts around the world, we want to have a third one in Europe.
Yep.
Right. So you have this kind of global operations service, right? But you have Piggy. And if you look at the screens, what you're looking at, you do have more than one product there because we've got a space weather tracker called Taro, which is available to the general public for free. It's free.
I saw that as well. So that was going to be my next question. So what is So that's a terrestrial and astronomical rapid observation toolkit, correct?
Yeah.
I like my acronyms.
It's the space industry. You get a lot of acronyms, right? I mean, it's not a big deal. But Piggy in the middle screen that you see on the back wall, you can see the satellite control screen. So the operators are looking at where the satellite is overpassing a ground station. Those are the top of the screen where you get those red dashes. Yep. I don't know if you can see the top.
Yep.
And you've got the command and control part of it on the in the middle. It's kind of taking up a bit of the screen. Those orange blocks are actual commands that you could assign to the satellite, and that's how they plan out their commands for the satellite. It's very easy to use. Click like a button. On the sides, you've got Taro on one side and a different screenshot of Piggy on the other, where you're looking at your space situational awareness. So in the simulation, you could pull back from the Earth. You could look at the whole solar system and look at any object in the solar system with it, if you got the right data set.
Wow.
In the foreground, in the front, you're looking at the flight director screen, and that's where you're tracking the actual tasks. So the macro tasks, like one of the problems that you have in the space operations community is tracking space traffic is normally done in a completely different service to the control of satellites. You very rarely do it in the same room. And normally you have like 12 to 20 different products that you need to work together in a single operations center. My goal is to get it down to one product, but at the end of the day, we ended up with like 3 or 4.
Wow, okay? That's not bad.
Getting there.
That's right. So that way, Saber Astronautics actually, all the software that you're using, Piggy and all that sort of stuff, actually becomes a one-stop shop.
That's the goal, yeah.
Awesome. So my question, another question as well, is in regard to all of this, is you've doing the all this operation software, you're doing all that sort of stuff. You've got operations in Colorado, you've got operations here in Australia, in Adelaide, all that sort of stuff. So with the signing, this actually relates to the signing you've done with Axiom Space. I know it's only been November, and yes, we had a Christmas break in between. So what will happen from here in terms of what happens next, in terms of actually next steps, like how, like let's say I own an Australian company, as an example, or business, how do I get on board with you guys to actually get to the International Space Station, because I've got a manufacturing idea, or I'm Optus and I want to, or Telstra for that matter, and I want local telecommunications companies in Australia, for those people watching overseas, my little disclaimer. So yeah, if I want to start manufacturing the new low error rate fiber optic cable, how do I what's next? What happens next, and how do I get in contact?
Well, the very next thing on our side is we're designing these workshops.
All right. Yep.
And we're going to have a workshop in every state, and we're going to be working with state governments. All right, because the state governments know all the businesses that currently exist, and we want to talk to current businesses as well as younger, less established businesses. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to map out the different funding mechanisms that are available to the companies that might want to do these things. Okay, so you got space agency, you've got advanced manufacturing, you've got innovation grants that are both state and federal level. You've got things that are CRCPs, which kind of tie into the academic community a little bit. So these workshops are going to invite and bring together the academic communities. We've had massive outreach from the academic communities who want to be a part of this naturally.
Oh, right. Wow.
Because they say, oh, we could do research in space. Can you fund our research? Well, no, we're not going to fund your research. You have to pay. We have to gather enough resources in order to pay for the ticket. That's the challenge that we have to solve. All right. The honest statement is, if we don't solve that, we don't have an astronaut.
Yep.
Upside, I think we can solve that, because I think there's plenty of resources out there to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what I found is a lot of companies don't realize that they can get an advantage on orbit. So that's a job from the Saber side. We got to close that loop.
Yeah.
If you're a company that wants to get involved, just give us a call. We're taking a complete open kimono, coalition of the willing philosophy.
Nice.
About this. Okay. We have had a lot of calls from people who want to do the training of the astronauts. That's premature, but we're happy to talk to you and build a community around that as well. Okay, so we're not turning anybody down at all. Of course, you got to be Australian, because this is going to be Australian products that we're building out of this. And eventually, when we do a call for astronauts, it's going to be an Australian astronaut. But the industry side definitely has to come first. But at the end of the day, it's completely open.
That's awesome. So hopefully I'll get to see an Aussienaut. So that'll be awesome, which is on my T-shirt.
Absolutely.
That'd be absolutely awesome. So I just have a couple more questions. So then we'll start wrapping this up. Also off the cuff question. So you've often seen me on screen, and people who follow the channel and all that sort of stuff, they know that I like my cup of coffees. What's your favorite beverage, mate? I've got an idea. It's beer.
I do like my beers. If you got to narrow this down, because I have a chai latte every morning. That's usually my breakfast if I got morning meetings, and then quick chai latte. Big fan of that.
Yep.
I do like the dark beers, stouts and ambers and oatmeal stouts. I love those, and porters. I do gravitate towards rums. Getting into whiskeys, don't know much about them, but I like tasting and trying.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm exactly the same as you. I've really got a big thing for whiskey at the moment. So yeah, I'm venturing down that path. My other question as well is this is a little bit off the cuff, and I'm pretty sure I know what your response is going to be without even asking. What
Sure.
about you? Would you go to the International Space Station if you had a chance? Would you become an Aussienaut?
If you asked me that 10 years ago, I'd have said yes right away. I'm 50 now, and my body is starting to show the signs of age. The short answer is yes, of course I'd love to do it. I've got another parabolic flight coming up for the Space Beer bottle, because that development's still going on, and we do these parabolic flights. I know my body can handle microgravity, so that's good. The short answer is yes, of course I'd love to do it. I could probably risk a 30-day trip. I'm not sure if I'd do a 60. I think I'd probably want a younger version of me to do that. That's the answer.
Yeah, and it's the same for me as well. It would, I'd love to do it. I'd do it in a heartbeat, but I think I'd be more the just over the Kármán line kind of Aussienaut to begin with. Just go up and over, and that should be enough. That'll be enough for me, I think. And then it'd be the end of that. All right. So look, I'm just going to wrap this up now. So look, if anybody wants to know any more about Dr. Jason Held, the CEO of Saber Astronautics, or anything more about the Space Cockpit or any of the other software, or how to get your business to the International Space Station, I've placed links to everything below. So I want to say thanks again very much, Jason, very much for joining me to explain more about Saber Astronautics and the deal with Axiom Space. And I really, really hope that 2022 goes well for you. Thank you again very, very much for your time. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
A lot of fun. Really appreciate it. It's a great interview. Really appreciate it. All right.
Thanks very much, mate. All right. So look, this is for everybody else who's still watching and following along. If you like this live stream, you just got to remember, please head off on over to and subscribe to my YouTube channel. When you're subscribing, please remember to hit the subscribe notification bell, or the notification bell as well. Every time I upload a video, you know more about it. While you're there, it's also, if you like this video or you like this live stream and you've enjoyed it, please like and make a comment. Unfortunately, I have to actually say that this sort of stuff also lets YouTube know to share more of my channel with more people who like to learn about the space down under. So thanks very much for watching, everyone. And remember, as always, stay caffeinated.